They'll just kind of.
Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're here. I Young and Robert Woody are presenting today, and we're just so thankful that you said yes to this invitation. And we look forward to what you have to share with us. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. So, shall I start then? Can you hear me? Okay, if my level voice drops too low, raise your hand, let me know. So, I was born in Newton, Iowa, town of about 15,000 near Des Moines. Just as the United States and the world were beginning to recover from the Great Depression. My parents were tenant farmers, renting and operating a small farm near Newton. My father, Herschel Woody, was from a farm family, 6 children, and he was unable to complete more than a year of schooling beyond 8th grade because he had to work on it. So my mother, on the other hand, was also from a farm family, but her father had serious health problems, and ultimately they had to move into town when she was quite young. She graduated from high school in 1928. She had taken courses in elementary education. It's part of what was called the normal training program. And this course equipped her to and qualified her to become a teacher in a rural school. So her first teaching job was on a farm near the farm where my father was working as a hired hand. And in those days, the country schools often used a box silver as a means of raising funds. Those of you who've seen Musical Oklahoma will recall how box suppers work. The eligible women in the school district would pack a lunch, or rather pack a dinner, picnic dinner, and box it up and to take it to the school. It would be auctioned up to the highest bidder. Well, my father won the auction for my mother's box supper, and that was the beginning of their courtship. Okay, so my ancestry is Northern European, largely English and Scottish, but with 1/8 German. And the Woody name originated in Scotland, and they came to colonies not too long before the American Revolution. The Woody name is not very common in the United States as a whole, but in certain locales it is quite common. And the farm country south of Newton, Iowa, was one of those. My uncle used to say that if you saw a farmer in his field south of Newton, and you said, "Good morning, Mr. Woody," you would have a 50-50 chance of being right. So when I was not quite 3 years old, my sister Judy was born, and within a few months, however, my father learned that the ferocious headaches that he was suffering were being caused by a brain tumor. And in those days, of course, in the late 1930s, there was essentially nothing that could be done. He was taken to the University of Iowa Hospital treatment, but he passed away within a few months. So my mother, and my sister and I moved into Newton and started to live with her mother, my grandmother, partner, and so my mother began to work in town, and grandmother took care of us. I started school in 1941, went to the same elementary school that my mother had gone to, and in fact, even had the same kindergarten teacher. The Newton school system was really very good. They had a system whereby half a day you would spend in homeroom studying classes, and the other half would be specialized classes like science and art and music and so forth. The fact that our school had a science classroom and in fact a very skilled teacher in science was very important in my further development. Even before I began taking regular science classes in the third grade, I was able to get information that was very helpful. Starting in the first grade, I took a snack lunch, and the science room was used as a lunchroom. So one day I saw a slender little volume called Seeing Stars in the science classroom. And then not too long after, I discovered that this book was available at the Dime store. So I begged a dime from my mother and bought a copy of the book. And I was fascinated by the descriptions of planets and constellations and so forth. And that was the beginning of my interest in science. I started checking out all kinds of science books from the public library and just had a thorough ball with all these things. So gradually I drifted from astronomy to chemistry. My mother gave me a Chemcraft chemistry set for Christmas, and that sort of sealed the deal. And my mother was a faithful member of the Newton United Presbyterian Church. She had been married. My father and she were married there, and my sister and I were baptized there. As far back as I can remember, we regularly went to church and Sunday school and also participated in youth groups as I got older. So it was always implicitly assumed that I would go on to college after high school, but the financial means were certainly questionable. My mother certainly couldn't have put me through school, and fortunately I had been working part-time starting in the 8th grade. And so I saved up some money, but what really made it possible was the Maytag scholarship. Until 2007, Newton was the headquarters of the Maytag company. And the company had been very generous to the city in supporting community efforts and so forth. And the year before I graduated, the Maytag Foundation initiated a series of 12 scholarships, which covered tuition and fees. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the recipients of the second round of Maytag scholarships, which really made it possible for me to attend Iowa State. With the help of the scholarship and with what I had been able to save up and so forth, I was able to get through 4 years of school with no debt. And of course, that makes quite a contrast with the current situation where students have a huge debt. And tuition and fees, for example, are something that 20 or 30 times larger than they were when I was going to school. So at Iowa State, I majored in chemistry, and I was fortunate to be assigned to academic advisor, Dr. Robert Hansen, who was a brilliant chemist, and he offered me a job in his lab starting in the summer after my freshman year, and that and then in the following academic year. In fact, I stayed working with him in his lab for all 3 years of remaining in my undergraduate career. By the time I was a senior, it was clear that I wanted to go on to graduate school and obtain a PhD. So I made applications to two schools, Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin at Madison, and University of California at Berkeley, and was fortunate to get offers from both. I decided on the Berkeley offer. And so in September of 1958, I took a train west from Des Moines to Berkeley. The first thing I needed to do was to get a thesis advisor, because at Berkeley they insist that you get a thesis advisor very early in your first year, whereas most schools wait until end of the first year rather than the beginning of the first year. But that was the system, so I talked to a couple of people that I thought might be likely advisors, and I settled upon Ignacio Tinoco as the person that I would work with, and that was a very wise decision. So in my first semester as a TA at Berkeley, I was assigned to Chem 111, the physical chemistry lab. And one of the students in this course was a chemistry student from Korea who happens to be sitting next to me right now. We'll hear a little more about that later. But I was to encounter her again at Cornell University. She has played a decisive and indispensable role in my life. So as a graduate student at Berkeley, I started to attend services at St. Mark's Episcopal Church, adjacent to campus. I found the liturgy very satisfying, and much more so than the rather Spartan Presbyterian order of service. So I also liked the historical connection with the early church. So as I ended near the end of my PhD work, I began to think what I was going to do next. And for me, I was quite sure I wanted to go into an academic career. And so that would imply doing a postdoctoral taking it to postdoctoral position. So and the other thing that I was thinking about was that my thesis work was very largely theoretical, and I wanted to get experimental experience. So I wrote to Harold Schraga at Cornell University, who was a prominent figure in physical chemistry proteins, and asked for a postdoctoral position, in which he quickly replied and offered me a position. So that period at Cornell University was productive scientifically, but it was also productive personally. Harold Schraga's group had a joint weekly seminar with a research group in enzymology and biochemistry. And one day, right after I joined the lab, I walked into the seminar room, and there was a considerable rustle in one corner of the room, and it turned out it was a young hair who was working with George Hess, and she recognized me as being her PChem lab TA. And actually, you might think this would be a welcome thing, but actually it wasn't, because she had said that she really didn't want to see me ever again. I don't know exactly why. I mean, I don't have a clear recollection of the incident, but I'm sure it's true. I pressed her rather relentlessly on an oral exam that this lab course used, and she understandably did not want to see me again, but she did. So. So despite this auspicious beginning, Young and I became good friends over the next year, and soon she and I were going to lunch and beginning to date. So the following spring, we became engaged and we set our wedding for the following January. In August, I left for Urbana, Illinois, my first teaching job. And Ayang felt she should finish out 2 years with Harold Shraga. So she remained behind in Ithaca, and I went to Illinois and taught the fall semester, and then returned to Ithaca for our wedding. So at the end of January, we were married in Annabelle Taylor Hall on the campus. At our wedding reception, Harold proposed a toast, the nearest neighbor interactions. That's a somewhat arcane reference to a topic, an important topic in his lab that he was studying, as well as the fact that Young's desk was just across the bench from mine. And so that was a double entendre in his toast. So, beginning of February 1965, we had a brief honeymoon in New York City, and then we went to Ithaca, Urbana, and began our life together. On February 23rd, 1966, our first child was born, Michael Robert. So it was a very long and difficult delivery for Ayang. And Ayang and I had a crash course in parenting, but everything worked out well. So in early 1970, we moved to Tempe, Arizona, where I joined the Department of State Chemistry at Arizona State. So our move from Urbana to Tempe was a blessing because Ayang's health improved markedly. The damp, cold winters had really got to her in Urbana, Illinois, and Arizona sun did wonders for her. On January 14th, David Matthew was born in Scottsdale Hospital, and so our family was complete. In Champaign-Urbana, Ayang and I did not go to church. When we moved to Tempe with our first son, Michael, we decided to start going. Based upon my Berkeley experience, I suggested an Episcopal church, and Ayang was receptive to that idea. So we started to attend St. Augustine's Episcopal in Tempe. Ayang also appreciated the liturgy, and we developed some very close friendships in the congregation. Soon we were confirmed. David was baptized. Michael had been baptized earlier in my own church, and I joined the choir. A year or so later, when the CSU Department of Biochemistry had decided to recruit a biophysical chemist, one of my colleagues who was at CSU but who had been with me in Tempe suggested that I apply for the position. And I did, and was lucky enough to be offered the position, which I happily accepted. So we moved in 1975 to CSU in Fort Collins. Before we had left ASU, Ayang and I wrote an NIH proposal to study the enzyme RNA polymerase from E. coli by spectroscopic methods. Our proposal was reviewed, and it received a decent score, but it wasn't good enough to be funded in the slot. So we wrote that off to experience. Shortly after arriving at CSU, however, we found that the proposal was going to be funded after all. And so this began a long and productive collaboration between Ayang and me on the enzyme RNA polymerase. So when we moved to Fort Collins, we planned to visit both Episcopal churches, St. Luke's and St. Paul's. Since St. Luke's was closest to our home, we went there first. The rector at St. Luke's, Ed Ostertag, was so charismatic and our reception was so warm that our resolve to check out both congregations was forgotten. We made many close friends at St. Luke's. I joined the choir. Ayang taught a Sunday school class and our boys were active in the youth group. This lasted about 5 years until Ed Ostertag had to resign for health reasons. A new rector was selected. The process took place while we were on sabbatical in London, so we had no real input. Not that we probably would have changed it anyway, but it turned out to have been a mistake. The new rector did not work out, and we and a number of other people left St. Luke's because of unhappiness with the rector. Despite the fact that our some good friends and colleagues who were members of St. Paul's, initially we did not take up the hint to try St. Paul's, but finally in 1996 we started, and we soon transferred our membership here. We've been very happy with this. We've been received very warmly and found many friends within the congregation. Several, as you all know, several crises have tested the resilience of the congregation, but the congregation has weathered them. So, excuse me just a minute here. So, I turn now to my contribution to the series on faith and work. And what I would like to do is just briefly describe the example of the relationship between faith and science. I believe that God created the universe in the Big Bang and ordained its physical laws that led to our present universe. He chose evolution as his method of creating organic life on Earth. Cosmologists and astronomers generally accept the idea that the universe began as a Big Bang about 14 billion years ago. The universe is believed to have started as a point of pure energy with an infinite density. It started to expand and is still expanding. As the expansion and cooling continued, the quarks that make up nuclei burn nuclear fuel, burn helium or burn hydrogen to helium. In the final stages of the stars, a much more complicated processes take place, and the star becomes unstable, and ultimately, in many cases, it explodes dramatically, spewing the contents of the star throughout nearby part of the universe. In the first seconds after the Big Bang, the expanding universe was filled with particles and antiparticles, which were busy annihilating each other. In principle, there should have been an equal number, but in fact, there were an excess of perhaps about 1 part per billion of particles over antiparticles. It's this excess that we now see as our mark matter in the universe. So a small excess. The rate of expansion of the universe depends on its mass and its energy, as well as on the strength of gravity. The value of this rate is astonishingly close to the cutoff between expansion and contraction. So we're sort of on a knife edge in terms of which way the universe goes, but it keeps on going. So, in addition, there are several other coincidences where things are very close. The strength of the strong nuclear force that holds protons and neutrons together in the nucleus is critical. And again, it's poised very close to the cutoff between stability and instability of larger nuclei. Finally, there's a strong nuclear force that's applied to the carbon nucleus. Turns out that that's just right to barely keep carbon being produced, but not to tip it so far that it goes into converting everything to oxygen. So taken together, these extraordinary coincidences suggest that our universe was endowed with very special properties. You could say it's a Goldilocks universe. And this has been interpreted as evidence for a divine intent. The sun and the planets in the solar system came into being about 4.5 billion years ago, condensing from a cloud of dust and gas that included remnants of first and second generation stars. The newly formed Earth was hot from the energy released upon its condensation, and it was being constantly bombarded by additional material. Hundreds of millions of years, this Earth was a very inhospitable place. But when it finally cooled to the point of retaining an atmosphere and liquid water could remain on its surface, life developed in a remarkably short time, believed to be only about 100 million years. How life originated is not really known. But once it did, it began to evolve through natural selection. Natural selection is crudely known as the survival of the fittest. It's a powerful force for evolution, and it can lead to increasing complexity, as you can see in the fossil record. The vast range in life on Earth is believed to have evolved by this mechanism. Evolution ultimately led to hominids and humans, but humans have some unique features: consciousness, knowledge of right and wrong, altruism, sense of a higher being. How did we acquire these features? Again, we don't know. Unlike the more tangible physical traits, these are not explicable in evolutionary terms and are evidence of a spiritual side to humans. The beauties and marvels of this world were created by God through his laws and the processes he ordained. The process of creation has played out over billions of years and is still ongoing. So thank you.
All right, it's my turn. Okay, as you probably all know, my name is Argyll Wee. And also I am Asian American and specifically Korean American. And before Christianity came into Korea, Korea was largely Buddhist and Confucian country. And about toward the end of 18th century, Catholic Church came into Korea through China and through France. And in the 19th century, a Protestant church came into Korea, and Canadian mission especially came into northern part of Korea, bringing what is the church? The U.S. church. Presbyterian church. Suddenly I just lost that track. So North Korea, they came in, Canadian mission came in, and gradually they were very generous. They started high school, they started college, and they started medical school, and they started they also started hospitals and so on. And so this was in Northern Korea. And at the same time, the United States also, Methodist Church mission came into southern part of South Korea. And they also did the same. They started schools and college and hospitals, and of course the church. That was very important. And then came colonization of Korea by Japan. Japan won the Russo-Japanese War in the early part of 20th century. And as soon as they won the war, they decided to come into North Korea and conquer and colonize it for 35 years. Yeah. And my parents, so that opened, although Japan conquered Korea, that brought Korea into the world, or vice versa. The world came to Korea because Korea was hermit kingdom. They didn't want to have anything to do with the world. It was good by themselves. But this brought a new world to Korea. And my father was educated from high school in San Francisco onto bachelor's degree in chemistry in Dubuque University in Iowa, which was supported by Presbyterian Church. And then he almost got master's degree in chemistry from Northwestern University. Unfortunately, 1929 stock market crash basically eliminated his chance to go on further on. And so he stayed in the United States for another 3 years, but he couldn't get scholarship or couldn't get job and so on. So he decided to go back to Pyongyang, Korea, which is the northern part. And that's our family seat. And contrast to the struggle I had to go through to get education and so on in the United States, my mother was very fortunate to be able to get bachelor's degree from one of the well-known Korean women's university in education. And she went to Japan to get master's degree in kindergarten education. This is very unusual for her generation. Her contemporaries, if they got elementary school education, they did very well. So, and since Canadian mission was in North Korea, she was very, very active in church activities, especially in connection with Canadian missions. And so when my father and my mother met, and they decided to get united, that our family was really based very well in Christianity. So that's, and as I remember, my little childhood was very happy. My parents told us to love God and be kind to people, all kind. That's what we remembered, and I remember that my parents would quote Sermon on the Mountain. And so we were sort of from childhood on and cultivated in Christian generosity, love, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So, and then the end of war, Second World War was coming. And the Korean people were very happy that we are going to be liberated from Japanese rule. But unfortunately, that's not really. That happened, but unfortunately, Korea was divided by 38th parallel. And North Korea, the communists and Soviet Union came in. And in South Korea, United States and allies and more democratic country became available. So my father fled North Korea as soon as communists came in because he was really a strong target. He was educated in the United States and he had a landowner. So he left. In the following year, my mother decided to hire a little ox wagon and put out I have 3 brothers and I'm the only girl, and put them in their ox cart and covered it up with blankets and we were gonna go over 30th parallel. And the North Korean, when we got to 30th parallel, they the North Korean army asked my mother where we are coming from, and my mother cleverly said, "We are refugees from Manchuria," and they just said, "Go." So we came over 38th and joined our father. Of course, our father, our life was really very precarious because they lost everything. And in spite of it, that our education was important, and I was really get excited about science because I had wonderful science teachers. Especially, I remember this physics teacher, and he probably was not as tall as I am, very short man running around explaining things and so on. So I was hooked in science. So that's where I was going to go anyhow. So that's where, and then we were struggling, and then North Korea invaded South Korea. It was 1950, and they came so fast, and we were not warned. And the South Korean government lied to us that they are winning. So we stayed there, and they came in, and eventually we were pushed all the way down to southern Korea city called Busan. And you know, when a situation like this happens, then we will helped by churches, and they opened their churches. And so all these refugees were put into a small, it's almost like our church right outside. And so many people put it together, and we were provided by food and care and so on. But it was so crowded, and hygiene was so bad, and the lice was just rampant going around, and you cannot imagine. You were just scratching all over and so on. But at least we fled from those Korean armies, the communists, and I tell you, they are ruthless, and they don't mind killing anybody, so on. But after about 1 year, then they said that we can take you people to Jeju Island, which is the southernmost island, and help you out a little bit better. So we decided to go to Jeju Island. And when we went there, it's a beautiful place, but they said that they can offer us American military tent, and 2 families can go in there. Yes. So that's what it is. There were 9 people in 2 families and in American tent. And of course, we had lots of Arkansas rice. And if you compare that to Asian rice, I mean, I was pretty bad. But thankful that we had something to be able to eat. And we were provided some green vegetables and so on.
How old were you when you were in the tent?
When I
How old were you?
In when we went to
In the tent. In the tent.
In Jeju Island, yeah, I was just finishing on my junior high school. Yeah. And then when we went there, in spite of the situation, the refugees decided to start schools for the children and start church so that we can all participate. It's largely Christian community, it turned out, the people who left and so on and so forth. So that's basically where I got my education. So finishing junior high and then going to high school. And you can imagine under that tent, there was no light. And so what I did was I studied under candlelight. And that's how I got my high school education, basically. And so at the end, so time went on and armistice came and we could go back to Seoul, Korea, where there was nothing left when we went there. But I wanted to go to United States to get college education. And I told you that my father had education in United States. He knew. He said, no, you won't be able to get good education in United States without money. So he said, why don't you go to university here, the university where your mother went, and then go to United States, get master's degree. Well, even at the time, I was so ambitious. That's not all what I want to do. I wanted to go further and further. And I'm not just going to go and get master's degree and come back. So that's the situation where I was. And then there was this fantastic advertisement throughout Korea that this organization, they didn't say what it was, that they are going to provide 20 bright students to come to University of California, Berkeley, and get education, full scholarship, room and board, and you couldn't believe it. So that was good. So I said, all right, that's my chance. So I passed that examination, and my father relented and said he gave me his blessing. So we were very happy. Everybody was very happy. And I still remember the day that I was leaving for United States in a station with my father, my mother, and two younger brothers and friends came, said goodbye, and then rode a train to Busan, where President Cleveland's ship was waiting for us. So I went there, and I was just the fact that I'm leaving my family at the age of 19, 18, and I didn't think about anything else. I was just so happy to be able to come to United States to get education. And I said goodbye to my father, and I realized that that was the last time that I'm going to see my father. I lost my father when I was at Berkeley. I was ready to finish my college education, and he passed away. So anyhow, so I rode this wonderful, wonderful ship, and there are lots of military people there. The food was incredible. I mean, I was starving most of the time, and here was all the great stuff. I just couldn't believe that people ate like that, But anyhow, I came, and we approached San Francisco Bay, Golden Gate Bridge, and the beautiful houses and the gardens. And momentarily I thought I came to heaven. And so I landed, I came to Berkeley, and then we realized that that was all hoax. It was nothing of the kind. This organization was military wives, and they wanted to bring these bright young students and use it as a schoolboys and schoolgirls. So when we came to Berkeley, they said that we can pay the tuition and all this stuff ourselves. And we can work as schoolboys and girls to pay for our room and board. So that's what I did for 4 years, staying with the 3 different families and do as much as I can and study and so on. And that's how I got my bachelor's degree from University of California, Berkeley. University of California at the time had a program that said, as a foreign student, if you can get above B average, then they would waive your tuition, which was at the time $200 for foreign students. $200. So I was like a general, looking at the map and how to conquer the world, or fight off the enemies. And I will look at my schedule and see how I can choose certain classes so that I can have a over B average every semester. And that's what I did for 4 years. And so I didn't have to pay tuition. And then, as I said, I worked as a schoolgirl. And you asked me, I did everything to be able to support myself. But anyhow, Berkeley was a good school. I was working hard. That's all I did. And toward the end of fourth semester, there was an excellent seminar. There were always excellent seminars, but this one was particular. That is, somebody was talking about enzymes and how it works in our body. And it was so exciting that that's what I'm going to study. And so that's what I went into. I decided to go to Cornell University and study enzymes. So I went into biochemistry department. And I forgot to mention at Berkeley that my life was very hard, but there was a little group of Christians who was helping foreign students. And I must say, they really befriended me, and their faith really impressed me. And they introduced me to their church, Presbyterian Church in Berkeley, and they invited me to their homes for Christian Christmas celebrations. And the entire family just became my good friends. And I still have all these years. They are my good friends. We are communicate, and now we are older, so that what we are doing is using Zoom and writing Christmas letters to help each other. And so where am I now? So I came to Cornell, and it was a very, the group that I was in is quite large, 2 universities, and it's a vibrant scientific community, and it was really wonderful, and I was very happy. And my Cornell roommates, when I was there, I was introduced to a group of young students who were going for PhD. It was not only for me going into biochemistry, chemistry students, and also political science, economics, and nutrition. And we had a little group of 6 girls in a place, and this nutrition student was helping us how to cook, how to make sandwiches, and how to take care of the house, and so on. So my Cornell experience is quite happy. I didn't have to worry about where the money is going to come. And all I had to do was study and do research so that I can get my PhD. That was what I was going. But one day, they showed up, Robert Woody. And I couldn't believe it. I swore I'm not going to see him again. And as he walked in, I just spontaneously said, I don't believe it. My goodness. And everybody said, what's the matter? there is a fellow who gave me a hard time. And I swore I'll never see him again. Anyhow, by that time, I got my degree. And so his mentor asked me, do you want to come and work in my lab? So I was very happy because I didn't know what to do, whether go back to Korea or get a job somewhere. And then I said, yes. And so what he did was he put me here and he put Robert right there. So we became gradually good friends, and the science was exciting and so on. And well, that was our beginning of our life together, and we decided to get married and so on. So it's getting long, and anyhow, so when we decided to get together, we decided to apply for federal grant to study RNA polymerase, this enzyme that I was so interested in. And he has his individual theoretical work. So with the 2 grants and the university, our life was going rather smoothly. And with a happy situation coming to Fort Collins and going to, well, as he said, the St. Luke's Church, and our 2 boys were happily taken care of by 2 young priests, and they were very active. And Robert sang in the choir, and I taught Sunday schools. So everything in that very happy environment, of course, we were able to enjoy music and art and so on, and appreciate the creation, the God's creation. And we were very, very happy family. And about 5 years after that, wonderful congregation in St. Luke's, Father Osatak retired. He was a wonderful priest. And our children started to grow and started to question, do you believe everything in the Bible? This was my thought. And then our David said, I am going to start to find out, and I'm going to start world religion, how it is. And then, as he mentioned, that the new priest, we didn't really, how should I say, communicate very well with him. And we were in a wilderness for 3 years until our good friends from St. Paul's invited us to join St. Paul's. We have been 27 years since we joined St. Paul's, and we have been very, very happy. Let me see where we are. Okay. Yeah, and then of course, since our life is happy and so on, our work is also happy. We had a bright students, and we were guiding them to be independent and so on. So our work was progressing very well. And as I said, we got a grant from the United States government to study RNA polymerase. And his theoretical work was going well. He would sit in front of a computer, and I'm in the lab and doing all this experiment. And he said, I am working also, I am doing my experiment in front of a computer. And so that's how our life was. And his office was just just across my office. And he would be in front of the computer, and I would be active in the lab and so on. And life was really very, very good. And I must say, especially, there was one German scientist, a postdoc from Germany, musician. He plays organ, and he would have this organ concerts so often, and after work, and would have these wonderful organ concerts that he provides. And we have wonderful communication with all our students, postdocs, and so on to this day. And he now is writing music. He is becoming a computer. So you can imagine our life was so full. And we thanked our God for this wonderful life that he provided us. And I want to mention one thing too, that about 3.5 years ago, we lost our son Michael unexpectedly. It's a fleet accident. And Robert and I were reading, and with a fervent militia and the member of the congregation came with a love, gave us so much love, and they really returned us to our balance. So our life at this church has been really wonderful. So I would like to say, that let us consider the beautiful nature that we encounter every day. And also, I don't know about you, but I guess because I have been studying enzymes and so on, I look into our complicated functions in our body and how enzyme really works such a wonderful things. And I also think about the unfathomable universe that God has created. And that gave famous Einstein cosmic religious feeling. And I feel the same. And I like to thank God for giving us this wonderful, wonderful life. Thank you. Any questions?
Did your father speak English to you when you were a child, or when were you first exposed to English?
Oh, I learned English to read, so I was able to read and I was able to write. But when I came here, I am deaf and dumb. I really understand. And the first family that I spent time, it was a lunchtime, and they said that we're going to have a hot dog. And I just fainted. Anyhow, it took about half a year before I sort of felt comfortable. And well, it was a struggle. I barely slept when I was at Berkeley because for issues that I didn't speak and I couldn't hear very well, and I had to pass that above B average. So, but anyhow, I made it, and going through 3 different American families, I learned a lot too. I mean, it was hard.
Thank you.
So military families paid for you to do what for their family?
What did I have to do?
Yeah, what did you have to do for the families
For the
that paid?
family. Well, depends upon the first family was they had two teenage children, and that was very hard. This family, she is supposed to be, I think she is not supposed to be, but she's an interior decorator, fashionable lady. And she was a single mother, but she had a boyfriend. And what was very hard for me was that they wanted to wear whatever kind of outfit to work in the kitchen. And of course, I was not invited. I mean, they had their table, and I was in the kitchen wearing this outfit and serving and so on. And then after all that, the next morning, I also worked, made a bed and all that stuff. And then I had to go to school. Okay, that's what I did. And then I came home and so on. But the worst part, staying with that family, was that it was soon after I came to this country. And as I told you, that we were basically starving, not much to eat, and so on. And this lady said, why don't you come along and go to this meat place to shop some meat? So I went there, and then she ordered this highest quality ground beef. And I thought it was of the family, but she said, this is for my dog. And she wanted to buy this thing. It was so hard. So that, and have to serve with this outfit, and they had a little bell, and they will have this little bell, and I had to go in and serve and all that stuff, and then clean up. So that's the one family. The family was a young family with two children, very nice. She didn't know.